morning, everyone. I'm Eugene Lisansky, and this is Meet the Instructor from OLLI at Eckerd College. And with me today is OLLI instructor Margo Hammond. Welcome, Margo. Good to see you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, tell us a little bit to start out about your background, your training, education, and what your career was like.
Well, I graduated from Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was born in Kenosha, just nearby. And then I went to graduate school in Europe. I went to the Johns Hopkins Bologna Center. It was International Studies. And then I went on to the African Institute in Geneva. And then I finished out my graduate studies at Fletcher, which is in Boston, School of Law and Diplomacy. But I like to think that I really got my education through my work because I was a journalist. And I started as a journalist the day after I graduated from high school. I put myself through college by working at my local newspaper during the summers. So I worked for the Kenosha News. I worked for the Washington Star. I worked for the Atlantic Monthly. And most recently, my most recent full-time journalist job was here in St. Petersburg. I came here to be the book editor of the St. Petersburg Times. And I was the book editor at the St. Petersburg Times for 16 years. So when I left the Times, I was writing a book. So I published that book. I was a co-authored with another book editor. It was called Between the Covers. It was about books. And also my mother died. And so I had started I started her on the path of writing. She wrote, when she was 86 years old, she got a column in the paper. And so I got inspired to start a blog called The Creative Late Bloomers, in classes. So my original classes I gave were memoir classes. And I usually gave them, they were travel memoir because my big interests have always been travel. In these later years, I started a series called In the Footsteps of, and I would take an author and I would go to a city and see the city in the eyes of some author. So I went to Dante's Florence. I went to Cervantes's Madrid. I did Woody Allen's Paris, based on his book, his film Midnight in Paris. I did Pessoa's Lisbon. Pessoa is a poet, a Portuguese poet. So it just sort of naturally, my repertoire that I offered to OLLI naturally sort of converged all my likes, travel, books, and art. And
what do you find about OLLI students, that the people who come to your classes? What's the most fun thing about teaching at OLLI?
The most fun thing for me is that it's still a learning experience for me, and because the people are mostly my age, since they're a range, but some are younger and some are older. We're all in this late bloomers sort of spirit that we're not giving up learning. And so I think that spirit carries through in what I like to offer. It's like a learning experience all over again for me to put the classes together. And I very much enjoy the responses. And I was just overwhelmed at how happy people were to learn this. That one was an architectural tour of St. Petersburg, seen through the eyes of St. Petersburg. It was in the footsteps, but I used at this time an architect to see St. Petersburg through the eyes of its architecture, which was actually prompted by a question. This is another thing I really like about the group, is that people ask questions. And in one of my, I think it was when I gave Cervantes in Madrid, one of the participants asked me, well, if you looked at St. Petersburg, what author would you use to look at St. Petersburg? And that's actually how I came up with one of my latest offerings to OLLI. So it's a two-way street. I get feedback and courses get developed from people's interests and my own.
Well, that's wonderful. Margo Hammond, thank you for stopping by today on The Instructor.
Thank you very much for having me.